for a player named Ice Mocha. They are a gold 1 on a player on the map King's Row, and they have some questions about positioning. They're asking about, I'm working on my positioning now, but I feel sometimes my positioning does not allow me to do a lot of things. The safest spot I can think of at this time. I don't know whether I should take the high ground, specifically at the 9-minute mark. So we'll make sure to look at that specific time point, and I need someone to help me spot which position is bad and what I should have done. Thank you for review. Okay, so take a look at this. So I did review this VOD previously, and from what I have seen, I do agree. From watching the VOD, I do think that you position in very safe positions for yourself. But the trade-off is in the positions that you're choosing. It doesn't give you great sight lines to really heal your team, and I'll show you what that means in this first team fight on attack. And the sight lines that you have also don't give you a good chance to land your cooldowns on the enemy team as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll focus mostly on the first team fight on attack and the first team fight on defense, mostly because first team fight on attack, after you guys basically kind of bowl them over, you're basically just sitting on the cart the whole way, and there's nothing really much to gain from that, outside of maybe get one of your teammates who's more mobile than you to push the cart. But outside of that, yeah, there's not much to learn from there. So we'll go ahead and take a look for that. But before we do, again, like we talked about in our last honor review, let's look at your team comp. So your tank, you're running a Doomfist. Your DPS is Cassidy and Soldier, and you have Zenyatta, right? So two things we always like to talk about with Ana is healing priority, and then number 2 is nano priority. So in this comp, your other support is Zen, right? He has very, very small healing output with his Harmony Orb, and he outside of his trance, right? So you're essentially going to be the main healer on the team. You're the one who basically has to be healing the bulk of everybody, right? So because of that, it doesn't allow you to be as aggressive as you would like to be, because you may need that nade, or you may need those extra shots to keep your team sustained, right? But I would say in this comp, you generally would want to try and pocket your Doom, right? Because he's going to be a lot more aggressive. He's going to be going in for those those dives, those punches, trying to get people with his combos. You don't have to worry as much about your Soldier because he has his healing station, and he has a lot of more mobility. So if he does need to run away, he can to go get a health pack. And then your Cass is kind of like the sitting duck, right? So I would say you would want, probably your healing priority is most likely your Doom, and then your Cass, right? Especially if he's in a dangerous position. So let's go take a look. And also, sorry, and then for nano priority, I would say probably either your Doom or your Soldier. A Soldier, Nano Visor is a very strong ult. It can be team wiping if the enemy team doesn't have any defensive cooldowns or defensive ults to deal with the Nano Visor. And then Nano Doom is just really strong, right? He can do his combos a lot more effectively. He becomes a lot more tanky. It's a lot harder to kill him. So either of these two are good targets for your nano, right? In general. So let's go ahead and watch this first team fight, and then we'll go ahead and talk about positioning in places where I think that you could have been a little bit more effective, right? So see where you're at right now. You're playing fairly safe, for yourself, and I believe you rotate behind this building here. So let's go ahead and see why this is a difficult position for you. So first off, it's just hard for you to see your team. You're playing behind this cover. It is, you're right, it is very safe, but you miss the healing opportunity to heal your Cass. You miss the healing opportunity to heal your Soldier, right? So you're safe, but you don't get the sight lines to heal your team, right? So let's see where you end up going. So let's try and speed this up just a tad. So again, we're playing this little window, right? And again, we don't have a chance to heal our Zen. We can't see our Doom. We really struggle in trying to heal our team, right? So what I think, in my opinion, a better spot for you to be is here, right, inside of this theater. And the reason why is that you have good sight lines of where your team is playing, either in this side of the choke, this side of the choke, or this side of the bus. Generally, people don't like to play on this portion next to the bus because there's just no cover, right? There's just absolutely nowhere you can go. Maybe you can use this trash can, but outside of that, there's just no way to LOS the enemy DPS. Here, why I like this, there's cover, from these pillars. There's this wall right here, and if you get pressured, there's a mega health pack, right, that you can use to sustain yourself, and you just have better sight lines. And why I like this positioning as well is that if you want to be more aggressive, you can tell your team, you can say, hey guys, like I want to be a little bit more aggressive, I want to go for a nade or something. You can take the staircase, and then you can go for like a good anti-nade on their cast or their BAP or their team right here, right? They won't be expecting it. Or if you go here, you can look for the same type of nade as well. So these are some things to think about, and why I think this place is a better position for you, because it gives you a lot more flexibility, it gives you better sight lines, and it also gives you some punishing potential. So let's go back and watch when there's SIG pushed up. So say you had been playing here in this theater. When the SIG pushes up, see, he's pushing past his choke, he's going after your Zen with his rock. Imagine if you slept him here, right? He's a sitting duck, he gets discorded, your Doom just full punches him, he's dead, right? Or if you throw a nade here, if you throw a nade and he gets anti-naded, guess what? He has to back up because he doesn't want to take sustained damage, right? His shield is literally about to break. He's using his, his CC cooldown. If he gets anti-naded, he has to back up, right? So, this position gives you a lot more pressure on the enemy team as opposed to where you're at now, which is, his shield is blocking you. You don't really have a chance to do much here to help your team by healing them, or by debuffing the enemy team by damaging them. So I would in the future I would consider moving here, and I believe that's essentially how the fight ends up going. You guys kind of stall out for a bit, but then once your DPS get a few picks, you guys just kind of bowl over the first points. Let's keep watching, see if there's anything else more obvious that I notice. If not, then we'll skip to the defense. Yeah, so you're basically just healing your team. We're not getting like incredible value out of our cooldowns, but it's fine. You don't really need to. Your team kind of just bowls over the enemy team, right? You guys just kill everyone. So, and you guys cap the point. So that's fair. That's fair enough. Like you basically did what you had to do. In this comp again, it's basically on you to keep everyone healed up. You don't really have to go for the aggressive stuff because you got a Zen who has like low healing output. But just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and skip to the 9-minute mark. I believe this is the first team fight on the... Okay, so actually the first team fight starts a little bit earlier. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about... Let's talk about your positioning on defense on King's Row. Let's talk about high ground. Where people typically play on the high ground. Why high ground is good, like why people tell you like, oh, play the high ground and play, go to the high ground. Why do they say that? When our matchup's bad to go to the high ground. So we'll talk about that. So in general, right, why do we recommend players to go to the high ground, right? Why is it generally favored over playing on the low ground? I would say number one, it gives you much better sight lines of the battlefield, right? So when you're playing on low ground, there's a lot of obstructions, right? There's cover, there's like cars, there's like objects that will block you from seeing your teammates and the enemy team, right? Generally, when you play on high ground, you're above many of those obstacles. It's a lot easier for you to aim. It's a lot easier for you to just see more of like the battlefield, right? You can just see a lot more. So that's one option. Another option is that it gives you better survivability against some low mobility heroes. So things like, say if that you're playing Ana and like you're playing on the low ground, and the enemy team is like on a rush comp or like a brawl comp, like they like a Reinhardt or a Ramatra comp with like a Lucio, and other like brawl heroes. they see you, they can just speed boost on you and you're dead, right? There's not much you can do. If you're on the low ground, they'll just punish you. But if you're on the high ground and they don't have the mobility to, they don't have the mobility like dive heroes. They don't have like a Winston. They don't have a ball. They don't have a diva. Like, it's a lot easier for you to survive, right? They're going to have to take the stairs. They're going to have to use some movement tech around to get to you that it will give you an ample time to rotate to safety, right? So that's why another reason why high ground is good. The third reason why high ground is good is generally when, say, you're fighting someone and the enemy is on the low ground. If you take too much damage, you can just back up, right? And backing up gives you some inherent, hard cover from an enemy trying to shoot you. So say you're playing on this high ground, and say you're shooting at someone, and you take damage, you just back up, and then guess what? Like the enemy person who was shooting at you, they can't see you, right? They're going to have to back up themselves to try and get a better angle to see you. So those are some reasons why we tell people to play on high ground, right? But when is it a bad idea to play high ground? So it's a bad idea to play high ground, especially like high grounds like this or this, when there's just very little cover. Here is just completely exposed, right? Say if you were going to start out here, it's completely exposed to like a Widow or a Hanzo. It's a straight shot from here to any of these high grounds basically, right? There's just zero cover at all. Another reason when you would not want to play high ground is when you're going up against what we know as one-tap heroes, things like like we said, like Widow, Hanzo, damage boosted Ashe, like things like that are pretty dangerous to go up against because there's just zero cover, and it's just basically telling the enemy team like, hey, shoot me, like I'm just sitting out in the open. Another thing that you would probably want to avoid playing high ground, although it depends. It varies based on your team and the style you guys are trying to play. Is that if there's like a very obvious dive, and if you're playing a very close high ground, it basically just tells the enemy team, hey, jump me, I'm just standing here, I'm here for free, like nothing's gonna protect me. So those are some kind of some things to consider, right? So on King's Row, like generally, like if we're playing a comp that would allow us to play the high ground, or where we would want to play the high ground, we generally like to avoid playing here unless we know we're completely safe from like enemy snipers or one-tap heroes. This is generally a safer spot because there's more inherent cover from like the angles that like Widows and Hanzos typically like to take. This is an angle that gives you better sightlines, although it's a bit more risky. You're a bit more exposed from this high ground and this high ground that sometimes Widows like to take. And then if you rotate all the way around, this is a very safe high ground that doesn't give you the greatest sightlines on the enemy team. But if you're just trying to go for straight like full survivability, this would probably be the one to play. If you're just trying to straight pocket your team, then play for like any punishing on any hard engages on the enemy team. So those are some ways to play. If you are planning to play the low ground, there are some places you can play. You can try this this telephone booth using this as cover, like jiggle peeking. This is fairly risky because if they have a dive or a straight rush, they can just run at you. So wouldn't recommend in most cases. A lot of people like to play this back arch, like either one of these, this wall or this wall, and then occasionally people like to play here because it gives you sightlines of the point. And then a very aggressive would not recommend in most cases, but a very aggressive position that some people play is this hotel room. The reason why is that it gives you easy access to anti-nading the enemy backline. And in a coordinated team, or like a team where you're in good communication, if you call that, hey guys, I'm going to go for an anti-nade on their backline, like, and you're here, it's very risky. But if you can land that anti-nade, it will be very easy for your team to follow up and kill them, right? So these are some positions to think about. They all have inherent drawbacks, positives and negatives. I would say generally, if you want to play high, this is a good place to start out, and then based on whether or not you're getting pressured, you can rotate here. If you're getting pressured more, you can either drop here and play the archway, or you can rotate here and play this. So those are some areas you can play. And if you want to play the low ground, generally you could play here, care for the flank through the hotel, or play back here where you're completely safe from the flank, but again, it's a little bit it's a bit harder to land your utility, right? So those are some things to consider. So let's go ahead and watch this team fight, and let's try to pick out what goes wrong. So again, here like you have good sight lines, you know, of your team, like you can, but again, it's just completely exposed, right? You know, if the enemy team has a widow or something, you know, it can easily be punished. But right now, you know, it doesn't seem like they have one, so you know, it can be okay, but you know, it is risky if the Pharaoh tries to like boop you off or something. I would also say that, you know, just staying in the same place for a very long time, you know, we've sped up the video, but you know, it's been about a whole minute, like, you know, almost two like team fight cycles have passed. They know you're up here, and if you continue to stay here, they're going to try and focus you more because they know that, hey, like they're on us pocketing their doom or their DPS, like let's try and kill her first. And exactly what I was talking about, a widow shooting you from the spawn, really, because there's just no cover. Like maybe if there was a bit more cover, maybe if there was like a ledge or some type of wall here, but here, like where you're standing is completely exposed. Like we'll just show. Let's go back just a second, just to show you how you looked from the widow's perspective. Like it's just completely exposed, right? There's just nowhere you can go, and if you're just aiming, standing still, like it's just an easy shot. So that's just something to consider, right? You know, so like this position, it can be okay in certain cases. Generally, I would say if you wanted to play here, like in this open exposed area, you need to be 100% sure, right? The enemy team has no way of punishing you. Either they don't have a widow, or if they do have a widow, the widow is dead, or you know, they don't have a Hanzo, or the Hanzo is dead. And like the fight has kind of like progressed past here onto the point, right? So to the point where everyone is kind of like focusing on trying to kill your team, right? If everyone has their backs, like, you know, everyone is facing your team and they don't see you, then, you know, this could be a good spot if you're trying to go for like an aggressive anti-nade, right? But I would say it's a very niche case, and you know, it's conditional upon the enemy like one tap DPS being dead. So those are some things to consider. Here, like say if you had played here, it's a lot safer, right? The widow can't see you. You know, if the widow, you know, goes to this spot, which, you know, a lot of widows like to play, you know, they still can't see you well, right? Because if you hug this corner, she doesn't have a line of sight on you. If you play up here, the widow can't see you unless she grapples and jumps on top of this high ground, right? Or she gets like in LOS of that window, right? So here again is like a place where you could have played, which would have been safer. And if you, again, like I said, the ultimate safety position is here as well. So if you just wanted to heal your team, you know, you have all the opportunities to heal your soldier and your doom and your zen, and you know, the widow would have to basically rotate across the entire map, like here, just to see that window, right? Just to get the shot on that window. So keep that in mind. Like, you know, always try and keep. So my advice would be always try and keep an eye on what the enemy team comp is. If you know they have a widow, always try to respect the sight lines, right? You know, a good widow is like very scary to play against. Like, you know, they can, you know, instantly one shot you. Same with Hanzo, same with like damage boosted ashes, like, you know, who are getting mercy pocketed, or in some cases sojourns, you know, if they have like their ult and they're trying to go for things. So things like that are just very dangerous to peek, right? If you do want to peek a widow, I would say like or a Hanzo or a hero like that can one tap, you need to be mindful of their firing rate. So let me show you what that means. I know I'm going a little bit off track, so I apologize for that. But like, let's say we go to the practice range, right? And let me pick Widow and show you what I mean. So Widow, like, in order for her to get a kill, right, she has to charge her rifle up to a certain percentage. I believe it's like 70 something, although, like, for argument's sake, right, let's just say 100. I know it's not exactly 100. I know it's a little bit below that in order to get a kill on on a 200 health hero. But like for argument's sake, let's just say that. So let's say at 100%, right? I have to take a shot. There's a delay between the second shot that I can take where it charges up to 100, right? So whatever that time is, right? Like it's like a second, or a 0.75 second, or like a second and 25. You know, if you hear a widow like takes that shot, right after that shot is your window of peeking, right? So you see the shot, you can peek, as Ana, like, do a heal shot, throw a nade, throw a sleep out, and then you need to hide again until you hear that second shot again. Same for Hanzo arrows, right? So here, Hanzo, you can hear the arrow come out. I can't fire like a fully charged arrow like right away, right? I have to, draw it back for like a second or so. So if you hear an arrow pass, then that's your cue to peek for just a second, right? Just a second to heal, and then go back. So like what that would look like, and I wish I had a clip to show, but say like I peek, I shoot, and then a widow fires, right? Say the widow fires here, and then before she has a chance to charge, fire again, and then I have to hide. So like that those are ways that you can play around the timing of an enemy's firing rate, right? It's I would say it's relatively like a higher skill like concept to think about, but it's it can help you in those cases where like a widow is holding a really oppressive angle, right? And you don't want to peek her, right? Because she can one tap you or one shot you. Like, these are some ways you can play around. If you know where the shot is coming from, you can just jiggle peek, throw a sleep out, and then hide. If the sleep lands, then you can just let her sleep, and you have the 4-second duration to do whatever you need to do. You can try over a nade. The nade may pressure her. You can do a shot. The shot may pressure her. Like different things against an enemy widow can help you like deal with them holding an angle, right? But ultimately the safest thing to do is just always try to mind their angles, just respect the sight line. Don't peek it unless there's like a shield or something that is actively able to block the shot, just because it is very risky, right? Even in the times where you think you may have timed it, maybe for whatever reason, like you mistimed it, and then that's an easy shot for the widow, like, or an easy shot for the Hanzo, right? So those are just some things to consider. So hopefully this was helpful. I know this is a little bit long and convoluted. Again, consider those positions, not just in King's Row, but on other maps as well. Always try to look for positions where, one, you can see your teammates, right? That's the most important thing, right? You're a healer. You need to, especially in comps like that, where you have a Zen or other low healing output hero, where you need to be able to see your team to keep them alive, right? For them to, be able to hold space, for them to be able to kill the enemy, right? Number two, you want to pick a spot where you can, be able to land your cooldowns on the enemy. Things like your anti-nade, things like your sleep. If you want to go for an aggressive sleep, things like, if you want to get some shots in to get some damage, right? So that's number two is, the most important thing. And then number three is also like somewhere that's safe, right? So you need to try and find a place that has all three of those things, right? Place where you can see your team, place where you can, land your cooldowns on the enemy team, and place that, is safe from the enemy. So it can be tough, and there are ways to play around with it. There are ways to be more aggressive. There are like windows of opportunity to do, but it just takes practice. It takes a lot of studying high level gameplay. It takes a lot of trial and error, right? And eventually you'll get a hang of it. Eventually you'll learn tendencies of certain heroes, tendencies of how people like to play, and it'll give you like an opportunity to improve on that and improve on your positioning, right? So I guarantee if you study this and you work on it, you come back to your old VOD in a week, 2 weeks, a month, and you'll see how much you've improved in taking your positioning, and considering your positioning, where you choose to play in a certain matchup, in a certain map. All right. Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Again, if there's any feedback for me or any more questions, feel free to follow up with me on Reddit or on YouTube, or feel free to reach out to the community on our Overwatch University or on our Animains. There's always people who are willing to help, willing to look at VODs and point out things that that they feel like could be improved. I'm just a an individual player. I'm not like some insane coach. I'm not like the end all be all authority on whether or not a certain thing should be done. So if if there's anything that is unclear or anything you disagree on, that's fine. It's all for a discussion, all for learning. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much, and I hope you have a good opportunity to improve on your positioning and improve in learning the hero, and and good luck on the climate. Thank you for watching.